Southeastern Conference is not going to win the national championship for the first time since 2018. Uh, Alabama losing last night to Michigan in a very heartbreaking manner. I mean, it happens. So, the league will go into 2024, the change of 2024, without a national championship in its backpack. I'm sure there were a lot of Georgia folks that were giddy about Alabama losing. In fact, I can confirm that from all my social media feeds. But, what does it mean for the league that it's not going to be on top as we enter the final stretch here of not the final stretch, but the final season before all of the change. We got one game before there's significant change in college football. What does it mean for Alabama? What does it mean for Georgia? What does it mean for the Big Ten? The Big Ten's going to have it's two of its members next year are going to be playing for the national championship this year, and that sort of stuff is what got us to where we are to begin with, which was the LSU Alabama national championship in 2011. Look, I think if you're Alabama, what I would say is this: Alabama wasted a tremendous opportunity, essentially, to steal a national championship last night. This is not a great season of college football, and that happens from time to time. We do not have an elite team in college football this season. Probably Georgia was as close as you got to that, and they didn't play in the national championship playoff. So you've got Michigan, which has a very good defense and a lot of grit and determination, but its head coach has been suspended 6 games. So there's going to be that black mark. You've got UW, which has a scary passing game, but has survived during the season so often. But they're both 14-0. Neither of these teams are, I think, anything close to what Georgia was last year. Georgia was in 21, Alabama was in 20, LSU was in 19, and probably not what Clemson was in 18. These teams are much more like Georgia and Bama in 17 that had, flaws. So one of them will win the national championship, and we'll start the new year of the new era of college football without the SEC on top. And this has been an amazing run. And it's not that other conferences haven't won the national championship in this time. I'm going backwards. Clemson in 18, Clemson in 16, Florida State or Ohio State in 14, Florida State in 13. But beyond that, it's basically been the SEC from 2006 till today. The last SEC team, there's only been 2 SEC teams since 2005 that have not played for the national championship. Alabama this year and Alabama in 2014. So that's it. Every year, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, the SEC won it. Obviously, Georgia was not, there was no playoff in 5, so they didn't get a chance to play in it. In 13, Florida State won it, playing against Auburn. In 14, you had Ohio State, Oregon, the most watched college football playoff championship game ever, probably because part of it was because it was the first time it had happened. And then part of it was that was a different time in television, and you had huge audiences that you don't have anymore. And I think part of that was, the SEC audience is going to watch no matter what. So everybody watched that game. It was over 30 million people, which was very close to what Georgia Alabama was in 2017. 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. Every year since, this is the first time since 14 that the SEC has not played in the national championship game, unless I'm missing. I mean, Alabama won it, Alabama lost it, Alabama won it, Alabama lost it, LSU won it, Alabama won it, Georgia, and here we are. So I think the league is clearly the best league. I don't think there's really much question about that after the destruction of the Big Ten, with the exception of Michigan, basically, during the bowl season from the SEC, just completely thumping that league. I think, though, now for everyone it's harder. Texas, you can't ever say you didn't get an opportunity. I mean, damn, they should have never been in the position that they were in, and what should have happened with the Texas game. And we used to say in basketball, the rim doesn't lie. Like if you didn't really get fouled, you'll miss the free throw. Texas had no business being at the 14-yard line or whatever it was, and you know it's just what it was. So uh, they did not win that game, and I'm glad they didn't. Only because that would have been really wrong for the sports gods to do on UW. But if you're Washington and you want to play with fire, and Washington has played with fire the entire season. I mean, they have walked a tightrope, a high wire act the whole year. And it's not caught up with them yet, but it will. I mean, if they pull that against Michigan, they're going to have a real problem. I don't know if Michigan can turn and run with UW the way that Alabama could or Georgia could, or a lot of these Michigan just I got to see it. That's not the style they play. But I think for the SEC, there's going to be a lot of discussion of Ole Miss. Which is that's fine. That's fine. I saw Roman Harper saying to that program, not let it get to your head. I mean, we'll see what Ole Miss does. They got it all in front of them, and then obviously you've got, it starts with Georgia. Alabama will have a lot of people back. Texas, we'll see. I think they are going to lose some really good players. They won't have A.D. Mitchell, who was like an automatic touchdown in the playoffs. So it'll be those three who will be the so-called powers of the league coming into it. And we'll see if Texas can survive what is a brutal, brutal landscape of college football living in the SEC. Is there going to be someone that surprises this season? I mean, Mizzou would have been in the playoff. Missouri was probably the best team Georgia played that was not Alabama. And I mean, I know this is going to be controversial. I'm not sure how far away from Alabama that Missouri was, to be honest with you. So I think Alabama won the right game and lost the right game. That's it. Texas lost the right game too. If Texas loses in the Big 12, do they get in? No, but Georgia and Bama and whoever's in the SEC, they're not playing Oklahoma State for the conference championship. They're not playing Iowa, a team that Tennessee beat by 35. I mean, it's not the same. It's not the same. Now, we saw that when Georgia and Florida State played. And we go, well, hey, man, listen, if you're that simple that you can't see the differences, then, have fun eating your peanut butter and jelly sandwich and go back to that life. Because, these things aren't the same. It's just not the same thing. The Pac-12 this year, championship game, that was legit. And you saw what Oregon did to Liberty, a game we should never see again. We should never see games like that. Like, we don't need to see if Liberty can beat a top 5 team, because they can't. We need to see if they can get within 30. No, we don't need to see that either. Those that you're wasting that spot. It's not right, frankly. But I think we've hit and we'll talk about this a lot. It's going to be a long 9-8 months, whatever it is, until we see Georgia play against Clemson. The league, Georgia, Alabama, Texas. You would think LSU, although apparently defense is still optional for them. Ole Miss, Missouri, I guess. There are some teams that are prepared for Alabama and Georgia very specifically are prepared for what's coming. I don't know if everybody else is. I don't know. I'm not being a smartass. I don't know. Florida doesn't seem like they are. Tennessee seems like a lot of people are kind of where they're at and where they've always been. I don't know that we're going to see a noticeable change necessarily from anybody. But the thing about the situation for, like, just for instance, Tennessee, if you're Tennessee and you are, having a season like they just had, you can eat losses to Georgia and Alabama and still get into the playoff. Missouri lost to Georgia and LSU. They would have been in the playoff. They would have been in the quarterfinals, possibly the semifinals. You look at Ole Miss. They literally lost to Alabama and Georgia. one by a lot more than the other, but they would be in the playoff and they would be probably in the quarterfinals. It is not out of the realm of possibility. It's unlikely. It's not out of the realm of possibility that you could get to the semifinals and it's all four teams from the league. That's totally possible. But this is just a giant clash between the Big Ten and the SEC and what's left of the rest of college football. The ACC's champion will get a bye. Of course, to the quarterfinals, which is ridiculous. The Big 12s will get a bye to the quarterfinals, which is ridiculous. And it may be that the Big Ten's getting a bye to the quarterfinals is ridiculous. I mean, I think we have to acknowledge that, like when I was growing up, the NFC was like the AFC wasn't even close to the NFC, but you only had one NFC champion. In baseball, there was also oftentimes when one league was vastly better than the other. We have one league that's vastly better than the rest of them. It's just not winning the national championship this year. It happens. But as far as Alabama's concerned, the more Nick Saban is around, I think the more I love him. I mean, his post games are becoming must watch, television, for lack of a better term. I mean, he's not the same guy as he was. And I'm not talking junk about him. What I mean by that is, he's not as ornery. He's much more grandfatherly. I think people should be listening to him and learning. He's said, we called a play, it didn't get blocked. It was a bad play call. It was a bad play call because it didn't get blocked. That's all. The kid from Texas blew it up. He made a play. That's what Nick's trying to say. I mean, you're not always, and Nick said this last night too, you're not always going to win. Winning is hard. Winning at this level is hard. And I mean, I've seen it. I've seen Georgia win the national championship twice. I've seen them lose it once, right? Essentially, I've seen them lose it twice because of the SEC championship game in 2012. But, it is hard because any one moment can end it. And, for Alabama, which dodged bullets the whole night, if we're being honest, the bullets that they did not catch from Georgia, they caught them last night. And it just, and frankly, the same word, it caught up to them. The low snap. The linebacker, it looked like a linebacker to me from Michigan, totally blowing up the tackle. That ended it. I mean, I don't know that the play call was so bad, frankly. I mean, you're at the 3. Jalen Milroe and the Alabama offensive line should be able to get 3 yards. But the problem with that is it's one play. And, on any Will Reichert, he ain't missing field goals, y'all. And frankly, Alabama's not in that position if Texas doesn't miss an extra point. I mean, if Michigan missed an extra point, there were mistake after mistake in that first game. Those two teams did not play well. They did not play well. If Alabama plays like that against Georgia, they lose by 20 in Atlanta. And y'all know it's true. I mean, they couldn't do anything in the first half. The only reason they scored, as I recall, a touchdown was because they got the ball on the Michigan side after a turnover, a self-inflicted turnover by Michigan. So, you got to play well in big moments. And Nick was saying, hey, this is going to be about what we do. And in that postgame, he said it was about what we did and what we did not do. Bingo. I mean, it's just what it is. And, when you're in those big moments, you got to have big moments. They got to play. All the little stuff adds up. And for Michigan, all the little stuff did add up. For Alabama, it added up against them, man. And, I like Jalen Milroe. I'm just going to be that way about it. I think I could do without a lot of the stuff that all guys do. But he, I thought the way that Nick handled himself after the game, I thought the way that Jalen Milroe handled himself after the game, that's what you should be like. If you're a champion, whether you win or lose the championship, I mean, I was inspired by it because I think that, it's tough to lose, man, because in life, you are going to lose. You're going to get news you don't like. The truth is happening at some point. Cancer is right around the corner, or, bad things happen. And, a lot of times you can't control that. But the way that you recover or react from that matters too. Dovetailing that into what is it going to be for Georgia? What is their reaction going to be to a 3-point loss to Alabama and the wrong game to lose? That's what I want to see as we move forward here. But it's going to be tough in this league. It's hard to know for sure. The league is going to be tough, but the opportunity is going to be there. I mean, the notion that Georgia would miss the playoff as it stands like right now, it's hard to see that. I don't see that. I mean, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, these are all top 8 teams. Not even going to sort of be in the playoff. They're top 8 teams. But every game's going to matter now. I mean, I guess they always mattered in the past, but they really didn't. Like, every game will matter in November, man. I mean, it's going to be sweating hard. Tennessee, Georgia, that's going to be, are you in the playoff or not for Tennessee? And, there will be a particular fever pitch about this that's going to be new. But just because it's new doesn't mean it's bad. Hey, thanks for watching. We'll see you on the next video.